Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode something that I've already fucked up that I can't remember. We have a returning guest in Jeremy Dooley.
I'm back.
You
back.
are. You're back from a...
Like the Backstreet Boys.
Yeah, you're
All
back
right.
from a few gigs in Sydney. How
Yep.
are they?
They were awesome. Yeah, Happy Endings Comedy Club
Yep.
in Potts Point, sort of King's Cross.
Yeah, Stabby Queen?
No,
King's Cross?
it's not anymore.
Oh.
It's pretty like quiet and gentrified. Like it's
Yeah,
still
okay.
got, you know,
Still
bit of
does.
party time elements
Yeah.
there, but not like what
Less
it used to be.
stabby.
Yeah.
I remember growing up as a kid, it was always like, King's Cross, there's been a shooting. King's Cross is stabbing. Some stripper got scalped. You're
No,
like, "Holy shit."
definitely not like that anymore.
Yeah. Well, so things have to change.
There's not a huge amount of nightlife in Sydney though. Everything kind of shuts fairly early.
I was there all of 4 months ago, 5 months ago, and they were like, "Yeah, you can't get into this place." And I was like, "Isn't this supposed to be like cocaine and strippers, like fucking Sydney?" And they're like, "Nah, we've got lockout laws at 12 o'clock."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh,
Yep.
this place stinks."
Yeah. When I
Yeah.
lived there, it was like peak lockout time, and
Okay.
yeah, you had to be in a venue, and it
it's
wasn't
brutal.
fun. It was kind of boring.
Yeah, fuck it. Well, now you're back in lovely Melbourne.
That's it.
The greatest weather in the world and all
Yep.
that jazz. Now, you're a returning guest. We spoke about last time you were on the podcast. You used to be a professional MMA fighter. Back in the day, had every injury under the sun, a record of crazily, which you found out, which was, what did you think your record used to be?
Thought
until
it
you-
was 8-2,
Yep, and what did the internet refer it to?
0-1.
That is not what we want to hear. But in your mind, you're 8-2.
Yeah,
that's all that
I
matters.
had my arm raised at least 8 times.
Yeah. It's fucking weird how you can look. It's funny how the person that you were chatting to, that you were like, I don't believe your record, and then you went and looked at yours, and you're like, I've got to stop telling people my record.
Well, and it could also just be like the search engine that I like was looking at the fight record thing, but
Sherdog, whatever it is.
yeah, I think it may well have been on
Yeah.
Sherdog. But also, too, it's like that fight was a title fight. So as if like
Yeah.
my first pro fight, my first debut as a professional is for a title. Like that just makes zero sense.
pretty special.
Yeah,
It was.
exactly,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're like, that's how good I was.
Just stepping straight into the
Yeah,
mix.
I was like, fuck it, why not? I got some spare time. The other thing you used to do, well, obviously you do comedy now, but I assume this was first. You were actually Captain Starlight at the Starlight Children's Foundation, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, nailed it. Yeah, that was my, I want to say first real job or second job out of high school.
How old are we?
I would have just turned 18.
Okay. How on earth, because can you explain what the Children's Foundation or the Starlight program
Yeah.
is?
So they work with sick kids and their families.
Yep.
At the time, and I think they still do, they had what was called the Starlight Express Room, which was just like a kind of like a fun zone for kids and their families within the Children's Hospital here in Melbourne and a few other smaller children's hospitals.
Yep.
And it's basically like a space where kids, their siblings, their family and friends could come in and forget why they were at the hospital.
Yeah.
So there's heaps like Nintendos and, you know, face painting and like toys, and like we had an in-hospital, in-house TV station that would go beamed, like, because every bed has a TV, so we'd be able to, like, you know, speak to the kids who are on the ward and couldn't come down to the room, and then we'd go up and, you know, walk around the hospital and, you
So
know.
it's sort of like a Patch Adams sort
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah. The clown doctors were absolutely a thing as well. And so we kind of had the same job, except they were clowns dressed up as doctors.
Oh, that's a thing.
And we were dressed as superheroes.
So how does that come about? How do you get into that world?
It's not that interesting a story. I was working at the Reach Foundation, so I was working with young people.
Yeah.
The Reach Foundation, youth organisation that's started by Jim Steins, former AFL footballer, and a movie director called Paul Curry. And I was just working there running programs for young people, and one of the staff members moved over to Starlight and reached out one day at random and was just like, Jez, I got a job that you're going to be perfect for. and I didn't really know too much about it, but it sounded fun.
Yeah.
So applied for it. I remember going to the job interview. I hadn't had many job interviews or anything like that. I didn't know what you were meant to do. So like, I was like, okay, I put a suit on because that's like, I think what you do according to TV and movies. So I rock up in a suit, and it's one of those moments where when the elevator doors opened in this building, everyone else was like dressed in costumes and in character. I am not in the right spot.
You should be like, yeah, Men in Black.
Yeah, well, there was one other dude wearing a suit, and we just sort of like bonded for the day because we're like, we are so out of place here.
Yeah, but you got the job.
And so did he, because there was a few jobs on offer, and so
They're like, look at these fucking clowns.
yeah, we got it.
We want heroes.
And I just remember there was this dude with like crazy, like, you know, dyed hair. Just as the elevator door opened, this guy is rolling past like on a razor scooter sort of thing. I'm just, where am I?
Yeah. So you went to the job interview, you get it, but what, like, how sick are these children? Is it from all aspects of...
All aspects.
Okay.
So you could have kids who have like long-term, you know, life-threatening, you know, fatal illnesses.
Yeah.
That's absolutely a thing. You could have a kid who, you know, fell off his bike.
Yep.
And, you know, you might have people who are born with certain conditions or who acquire them through an accident or something like that. You know, you'd have burns victims, you know, cancer. You'd have everything you could possibly think of.
Anything in a hospital.
Anything in a hospital. They're just young people, you know, and there was a teenage ward. So, like, there were people there who were essentially my age because some of the conditions, they stayed till they were, you know, 20 or something.
And you were just like, fucking... Do you want to have a dart? I don't know.
Yeah, well, so like, I remember for those, because, you know, everyone just knows you as Captain Starlight in the hospital, or you get called Captain and stuff like that. And so you rock up to the teenage ward, and everyone said that they're like the toughest nut to crack because they're, you know, they're older and they're super cynical and, you know, they're teenagers. Yeah, they're smart asses, like all that sort of stuff. And I just went in there and I'm like, well, I'm just going to talk to them how I would anyone else. I was like, what's up? And they gave me nothing. And so I just started like hanging shit on them a little bit. And I'm, all right, catch ya. And then I was about to walk out. They're like, no, come back. And I'm like, I got them. Yeah. And so then, like, because there are a lot of them around my age, and this group of teenagers in particular, a lot of them were dealing with cystic fibrosis, which at that point in time, the life expectancy was, you know, if you were lucky, you got to see the age of 20. And so then, you know, if you didn't get a lung transplant. And so, you know, there was quite a few funerals and stuff like that from that group. But then probably, I don't know, 10 years ago, maybe a bit less, I was on the tram going home. At the time, I was living in Preston, Victoria, and my stop was Gilbert Road, and I pressed the tram button to stop at the next stop, and the tram driver's like, all right, next stop, Gilbert Road. Good to see you, Captain Starlight. And I was like, what? And it'd been a long time since I'd done that job. When I was Captain Starlight, I had long hair. I was, you know, clean shaved. And at this point in time, I had like a full chest length beard. And, you know, and I walked up to the front, and it was that very, very first kid from the teenage ward who was giving me crap and was like, no, come back. He was the tram driver and full like... remembered me. We had a little bit of a chat, pissed off all the other, you know, passengers who wanted to get home. But it was a really cool moment. You never really realized like the impact that you had in that role.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
How many years later was that, you reckon?
Oh, that would have been 15 years after, easily 15 years after.
That's so funny that you like that he knew it was you.
Yeah,
even with a fucking big old beard and everything. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it was a really like heartwarming moment for me.
Yeah. He's like, "Did you scan on, mate?"
Yeah,
like, see ya.
Do another magic trick for him. Just bang, vanished.
Yeah. But I was going to ask about, you know, you were saying that there was funerals and bits and pieces. Obviously, you go into the job interview and they would say to you, like, listen, this job is fun and you're here to bring the laughter, but at some point, be aware that these children won't make it.
Yeah.
And do they give you training? What happens?
Yeah. And a lot of people couldn't handle that side of things. And it's confronting anyway, even without seeing sort of an end of life. It's a very confronting place to work.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of people who would come in, and normally you'd give, new captains or whatever title they were given like a week or two trial, just because if you got through that, you kind of all right then, but a lot of people couldn't last the week because it was so intense.
That is not a good thing for the kids to be like, we lost another captain.
Well, that's why they were always like super like skeptical, but they knew then if you were there if you were there for 1 month, you were going to be there for years on end.
Yeah. How long did you do it for?
I think I was there for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, okay.
In the end, maybe. And it was a while ago now.
What is the longest you reckon you saw someone in like the war?
Oh, the whole time.
Really? So the entire 4 years?
Yeah, they might go for respite and stuff like that, go back home and for short trips. But, there were kids there who were there when I first started and were there when I finished.
Yeah.
Quite a few, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty, like, obviously tugs on your heartstrings of that type of thing. So how did you sort of, like, deal with that?
There's a lot of gallows humor that goes on. Yeah. When we close the office door, some of the humor is pretty intense.
Yeah.
But that's just like how you cope with it. And I think the idea that I would go in there with is that I'm here to like just make them laugh and to treat them like a normal kid and not be like, oh my God, are you okay? Like, 'cause everyone's doing that.
Yeah.
And like, I would talk to them like a normal person, like they were any other kid, and I would never talk down to them. And so I ended up, because of that probably changed the dynamic that I had with a lot of the kids, because you'd get people coming like, hey kids, how are you going? And I was never that style, I'd just talk to them as normal. And so they would treat me differently. And it probably meant then that the relationship was really different and was unique compared to the other Captain Starlights.
Yeah.
But it also meant then that like the kids could relax and they weren't so like focused on their illness as well anymore, because they weren't made to feel like, oh, you're a sick kid.
Yeah.
I would make them feel like, oh, you're a kid. Let's play Nintendo.
Yeah.
And I'm going to kick your ass.
Yeah.
I'd never let him get an easy win.
Yeah. But was there a way for you or something you like to do away from work to sort of be like, work's done, I need to get into my happy place, or just get that sort of... I think obviously if you're thinking about sick kids and this and that, and when you think about anything horrible, you think about, current state of the world and things, you could be like, oh. But how would you sort of, relax or get your mind off that?
I was really lucky at the time. I had sort of 3 different parts of my life happening. So there was Captain Starlight, and then I was still working at the Reach Foundation. And so there was lots of, support and people to talk to if I needed to debrief. But I learned how to debrief in my work at Reach, and so be able to like process things in a really healthy way. And I was still, I was training karate at that point. So that was a really good stress release. All that sort of stuff. And those other 2 things, working at Reach and still doing karate and playing sport, and at that age, you're 18 to early 20s, you're still like seeing all your mates all the time as well. So that was really, really helpful.
Yeah. So you did that for around 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
So what in that time would you say would be like, what did you learn from sort of that type of job? Was it I assume public speaking must be
so many.
So like a valuable skill. It's just weird to even be able to chat to people coldly. You know what I mean? Like, I just got a new job in sales. If anyone needs a mattress or a bed out there, don't come to me because I don't know what I'm doing yet. But like those skills obviously translate later in life. You're 37, did you say? 38. Yep. Okay. So from that sort of job, because it's such a unique job, what do you reckon the main skills that you learned from that? So many. From, I guess, the interpersonal skills, like being able to connect and connect quickly, and to be able to
actually like see what does this person like, how do they want to be communicated with as well. That was a real quick sort of thing for me. The idea of treating everyone with respect as a person and not for their illness was a huge factor. And that meant that I had much stronger relationships with the people there and the staff there as well, because they're kind of the gatekeepers in a sense, and their life is stressful. And so being able to be like, hey, it's not just about the kid, but it's also about the staff. Oh, it's also about the kid's brother or sister who's healthy and neglected because all the attention's on the kid there. It's also about the parents. And so being able to like open my eyes and expand the vision a little bit was a really beneficial skill, because you start to see where things are in the makeup of things. And then in terms of like tangible stuff, the speaking, and because, we had a stage in the room, and so we're always doing dumb little skits and performances, and, you're interviewing celebrities would come in all the time. We had an in-house TV station, and then, there'd be times, and it was old school. So you're manning the sort of the desk to, do the transitions and live edits, and like, hey, I'm going to cross to someone up on the ward. And so then you change it so it's over to them. And so you're learning all those real technical skills, but then the improv and being able to talk. There was one day, which we'd do every so often on a Sunday, where we would try and just improv on the TV for as long as we possibly could, without being like, all right, let's watch Shrek for the 4,000th time. So you learn a lot of different things. And then we did a lot of training. So we did TV presenter training. We did stuff at NIDA. We did stuff with the clown doctors. Physical humor and physical theatre stuff. You learn so many different skills there. It was really, really helpful, and one of those jobs where you probably don't realize how many skills you learn there that you can take into all other parts of your career.
It's such a unique job. What was it like when you were talking about like the families? My mind goes back to the scene in like, have you ever seen $1 Million Baby?
No.
So I think it's
like a boxer or something.
Boxer, yeah. For the people that haven't seen it, it's old as shit. So I'm not going to break anyone's fucking. But essentially, I think it's called $1 Million Baby. But essentially, she's a superstar boxer, family scum. Obviously, boxing is lucrative. She makes a shit ton of money. She breaks her neck, so she's pretty much what would you say? Like, she's paraplegic.
Yep.
No, quadriplegic. And her family just see her still as a check, and they come in and they talk about like, come on, we gotta go to Disneyland. And she's just like, she just. So my brain goes to like, for some reason, that like the aspects of sometimes having a shitty family in there, which I assume would happen by just mathematics.
You do. You'd get families who would treat the Starlight Express room as their daycare, where they didn't have a kid in the hospital, but they knew that we existed. So you'd see them just like leave their kid there for the day, and that would always take a while for us to cotton on to.
He'd be like doing a test to see how sick they are.
Yeah, well, you'd be like,
give me an arm wrestle,
is your brother or sister upstairs? And the kids, because the kids are always honest, they'd be like, no. I live across the road. Peter play Nintendo. What's up? So you'd get that element a little bit.
So you would just tell the admin people to be like, oh, or you have to be like, hey, I know I'm Captain Starlight, but do not do this, you fuck.
Oh yeah, because
was it on you or for someone else?
Mainly on whoever was on that shift. But if it was a parent who was like being dodgy, then I'd very quietly and tactfully tell them to pull their socks up a little bit, and that was probably the main one. You'd get a few sleazy parents in there as well, because there's a lot of nurses at the hospital, and we're in character as well, and so we're dressed as superheroes, and so I'd get the dodgy mums, and and then some of the female stuff would get the dodgy dads. So that was always a thing that you'd have to navigate, and I'd generally just play a straight bat to that, but if ever anyone else felt uncomfortable, I'd always be the one to be like, hey, like, you just need to cool your jets here a little bit.
The cat will break your arm.
Because there's one captain who could fuck you up, and that was me.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But it was a high stress environment as well,
Yeah,
and
I
so
don't know how you do it.
you'd get the stress of parents because they'd come down to the room sometimes just to chill out and just escape, the ward. And they'd be high stress, and sometimes if there was a family where there was like a divorce or something, or that could kick off a little bit sometimes. It wasn't often, but it certainly did happen.
Yeah, I'd imagine you'd see everything under the sun.
Yeah,
from
you do.
The greatest parents in the world who have been dealt a terrible, terrible card to like absolute pieces of shit. And now the kid's been dealt a terrible, terrible card, and you're like, oh, you don't deserve this.
Yep.
I just don't understand. Like, I'm trying not to bring back any sort of like PTSD here, because it's obviously hard, and you are dealing with sick children.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, your job existed because sick children.
You don't want the job to exist.
Yeah.
In the ideal world, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's the craziest fucking thing of it. Like, was there any sort of like times when you were like, I don't think I can do this?
Not for me personally. I think for me personally, it was always around, all right, what can I do to, put a smile on a kid's face, or their parents, or make the nurse's job easier to, put the injection in and stuff like that. Because I'd walk the wards quite a bit to get around the kids who couldn't come downstairs.
Yeah.
So you've always got ways you can make a positive contribution, I guess, for lack of a better term. I mean, going to funerals all the time was tough.
So you guys actively go to the funerals?
If I was close to them, I would. Yeah. Absolutely. If I was close to them and they would reach out and be like, hey, this is when the funeral details are, then I would go. Yeah. Absolutely. It wasn't an expectation from the organisation, but I thought, that was always an important thing to do, and to get around them there, and even just your presence there can be like a happy memory for them as well.
Yeah.
Even though you're not in character, you're not wearing Captain Starlight. I don't have a silver cape on.
Just pans around the room, just like all like everyone's crying, and you're just there, just like
give my salute.
Yeah. It's such a unique job. I know I've said that 8,000 times, but I just can't think of anything for myself, sort of like that I wouldn't want to do. You know what I mean? I know it's selfish, but realistically, I don't think I would give the kids what they wanted, and I wouldn't be able to like look at the parents and be like, and I'm like, be like, try and make another one. Like, I can't, like, you know what I mean? Like, it'd just be like, it'd go too off fucking script. I'd be too honest.
Yeah, I think the way that I got through it is I would try and push the limits a little bit.
Yeah.
So I wasn't super like overly G-rated, like, hey, kids. I was like, Shrek. I'm doing stuff for the kids, but also like on another level, I'm throwing in gags for the adults as well that are going over the kids' heads, but the adults are like, I know what's happening.
Yeah, I just can't wrap my head around like so what's a day to day for you?
Yeah,
if you can remember. I know it's a while ago.
When I was doing that, I would rock up to the children's hospital. I'd go in there, get in, my kit, and figure out what I wanted to do that day. And sort of like I'd always try and have like one big thing that day, and whether that was like a Nintendo competition or a talent show on the stage. It's beamed across the hospital. So I would figure that out. Be me and maybe one or two other team members.
Was it just you? Like how many?
Sometimes, yeah. Or there was other versions of Captain Starlight.
Okay. So there wasn't just...
So there
wasn't Colonel fucking...
Yeah, everyone had different names. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So we'd figure out what we were going to do, and then I would go upstairs and walk the wards for an hour or two, and then I'd come back down. The room's open at that point, and then I'd go and sort of just run amok for a little bit.
Yeah.
Do whatever big activity it was for the day, that Nintendo challenge or whatever.
Yep.
And then I'd go back upstairs onto the wards to close the day off.
Yeah.
And
What was your hours like?
Fairly regular, like
Yeah.
normal sort of business hours.
Yeah.
And then weekends as well. But then I would also do sort of an afternoon shift because you'd get kids who would come in at different times who weren't allowed to have anything during the day, and some of the teenagers, like we'd have like bring pizza downstairs and then we could show like an M-rated movie and stuff like that, where things were a little bit more relaxed. So I'd do those things as well. And then sometimes I'd be on the road too. So we'd have a van and, we'd have like portable like Nintendo pods and stuff like that. Because some hospitals don't have facilities. So there'd be sometimes where I'd be in the van and driving around, to Warragul or to Ballarat or, Frankston, Dandenong, wherever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sweet. So before you mentioned, obviously we talked about the families, good, bad, indifferent, but you also mentioned that sometimes celebrities came in.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, they did.
I assume you got celebrities that are legit celebrities. Who?
Yeah, you'd get some big dogs. You get the Wiggles. They came in, and they are the best.
Yep.
The OG lineup.
Because
this
they are
was
kids. Yeah.
Yeah. They were great.
4 kids.
You'd get High Five came in, and they had a TV show. They were in all the time. Oh, actually, not all the time. They were in once or twice, and they were fuckwits. There was one of them who was genuinely awesome.
Yeah.
But the rest of them were like too cool for school and there because they had to be there.
Yeah. What? Wait, they're singers?
Yeah, like a
pop
kids
group.
Yeah, kids group.
Oh, you think
Yeah,
that'd be
1, 2, 3, 4. High five.
Yeah, it rings a bell.
Yeah,
but not.
They were huge at the time.
Yeah.
You get them. We'd get heaps of Australian Idol people coming through. We had Knowlesy came in, which was huge at the time because that was just after.
Yeah.
Millsy
just after he got robbed.
Yeah.
Was he bitter and jaded? Like fuck it.
Nah, he was great. He was great. Rob Mills came in. Millsy.
Yep.
And that was not long. He came in quite a few times actually, and was always great.
I was going to say he seemed like he was quite a good dude from little interviews and stuff I saw from him.
He was great, and he'd just hooked up, or the rumors were he'd hooked up with Paris Hilton at the time, and so that was always like in the office. I'm like, so what happened? Is it true? Stuff like that.
What did he say?
Yeah, look, he said things.
Okay.
He said lots of things.
Did he? Okay.
It was very enlightening.
Yeah.
Delta Goodrum came in quite a bit.
Oh, really? Yep.
And she was phenomenal. She was so lovely and so good with the kids. And because she'd been through an illness herself. So I had this empathy from a celebrity that probably was uncommon. Like she kind of understood the world that they were in.
Yep.
And she'd always bring in whichever like celebrity boyfriend she was with at the time, and they were hit and miss. Some of them were awesome. There was one, I can't remember the guy's name now. He was a UK singer, pop star dude, but he was like a proper lad, and he was like, "Let's go for beers afterwards." I'm like, oh, "I got to stay and work, dude." Like, he was awesome. Like, you'd get Toadie from Neighbours. He would come in all the time. Yeah, and he would come in unannounced. He would just come in, and if he was in the area, he'd just drop in, and kids loved him, and he was a big kid, and they were the ones who were the best to work with, the ones who just were there because they wanted to be there, and often wasn't like a publicity thing for them. And because then you'd get heaps, like the High Five, like it was publicity for them. You get footballers who were like, contractually obliged for something to be in there. And
do you want to call out any of them?
Some of them are commentators on TV at the moment. Hello, Matthew Lloyd.
Shit, Lloyd.
So he was a tough one. Nikki Webster was a tough one at the time.
Strawberry Kisses.
Yeah, she was tough.
I wonder what she's up to. What are you up to, Nikki? Come on the pod.
I don't know. She's got pretty like Matilda's frother. That was like their song for the World Cup.
Really?
Yeah.
So every 4 years she sprouts up.
Yeah, she gets a run again, and in the Olympics.
Yeah, she lit the thing.
She did the song. Yeah,
it's so weird how our little like Nikki Webster's just our little like. Oh, we got an Olympics coming up. Get her
out. Let's drag her out of her little 5-ring box. Larry Emder was awesome. He brought the whole Price is Right team with him. And he was great and almost unsettling because he spoke, how he talks on camera is how he talks off camera, which you don't expect.
Yeah.
And so I was a bit like, oh my God, you're talking to me like this. It was very funny. But yeah, it was the ones who were there because they wanted to be there. They were always the best.
I assume that would be the case. Like, because just to have the conscience, like to be able to be like, oh, I'm going to in my spare time with no, as you said, fanfare to literally help other people is fantastic. It's like volunteers in general.
Yeah.
You know, obviously there's some scumbags who probably have some sort of ulterior motive.
Yeah, they're running a ploy.
Yeah, but most people who do volunteer work and stuff like that, you're just like, good on you. You're like, you don't have to do this, but you choose to do it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. So yeah, they were some of the best ones. You know, the guys from Melbourne Storm would come in. There'd be a few players who would come in, and Melbourne. Kids don't know who they are, but they're giants. They were huge. And so they were just like, they ended up being an extra toy for the kids. The kids were climbing all over them, painting their faces, but they would just sit and cop it. And they were great. They were actually a lot of fun to work with, the guys from Storm.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you did obviously that for 4 years, obviously the Starlight stuff. Now you do comedy.
Yeah.
So obviously you learned all those skills. Did that push you towards comedy? Did you go, I liked making the children laugh. I also, my closer audience that I would deal with would be, you know, the older kids and stuff, also including the parents, where you're like, oh, I like this feeling. I can do this outside of, you know, work.
Yeah. I think comedy had already stopped for me before I started Starlight.
So you'd done comedy.
In high school, I won Class Clowns competition at the Comedy Festival.
Yeah. Yep.
So me and a friend, we put together this little double act, 5 minutes.
Yep.
And we went through the Class Clowns, competition at the Comedy Festival. We won. Then we did a season at Perth and we did a season at Melbourne, and then we stopped.
Yep.
And then wasn't long after that where I started working at Starlight.
So you were like, what, 16? Class Clowns?
16. I was 15 when we won Class Clowns, 16 when we won Class Clowns.
Yeah. So for the people who don't know what Class Clowns is, it's essentially like just...
it's raw comedy for high school.
Yeah, and raw comedy is a competition, it's a stand-up newcomers competition in Australia. So so you guys won that.
Yeah, we won that, and so we did a little bit of comedy in year 12 and the year after, and then stopped. And then I became Captain Starlight. So it was already informed by comedy.
Yeah.
But then I didn't think about comedy for like 20 years.
Yeah.
In my job, I was working at the Reach Foundation still. And so I was always in front of large groups of people going into high schools. And I'd always be just making people laugh.
Yep.
But I wasn't like focused on that.
Yeah.
And then... yeah, working in footy, because then I had a detour working the AFL for a while, coaching, and always trying to connect through laughter. That was always my easiest way to connect with people.
Yeah.
And during COVID, I had like a few people mention like the comedy from back in the day. So, when I was just a kid and just, winning Class Clowns, a few people like, have you ever thought about going back and doing that? You should do it. Look at the people who were starting out at the same time. Look where they are. Like that could have been you. All those sorts of things. Like, it was like, Flight of the Conchords, Hamish and Andy, like all the other double acts.
Yeah.
And so, I was the seed got planted in 2021.
Yeah.
And I thought...
do you know who planted the seed? So when you have a shit gig now, you can be like, fuck you.
Hello, Uncle Pete. So And I was sitting at home watching Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, the Seinfeld show.
Yep.
And I was just working from my laptop, had that on in the background, and one of the comedians, I can't remember who it was, just said, comedy is basically storytelling, but you end on a laugh.
Yep.
And my work was all storytelling based. I thought, I wonder if I can do it. And I thought, all right, I'll get a gig, see how that goes. Didn't know how to get a gig. That took a while. That was a process.
It's like the biggest thing about comedy.
Yeah, I'm like, how do I
do it? Yep.
Managed to get on stage and had lots of very good experiences off the bat.
Yep.
And here we are.
So you would have had a distinct advantage from obviously not the first time because that's all brand new, but obviously getting that, like having eyes on you, that is the thing that like for me is just like, ugh, you know?
Yeah, the writing and the comedy side, you know, is always going to be playing catch up because I've had, you know, all of my jobs have been in front of groups of people and standing at the front of the room and trying to like get people to pay attention if they don't, sometimes they don't want to, or to listen and to, you know, to have an experience and to connect.
Yeah.
And so that's been very helpful in, like, I'm way ahead of where I should be for considering how long I've been doing comedy, which it's like nearly 2 years. Like when you're factoring in time missed with lockdowns, I'm way ahead of where I should be. And it's because of all of that. It's not my writing is not great.
Yeah.
Like I have some bits that are all right, but it's the stage presence is probably my strength.
I think that type of thing, obviously people can be naturally funny, have awesome timing, whatever, but actually having the stage presence, that is the thing that most people are working on.
Yeah.
So if you can, you know, but the thing is, people be like, oh, you know, you did it for a job, fucking, you're just doing it anyway. It's like, yeah, but I still had to be good at my job. You know what I mean? Like I had to do that job. Essentially, you know, people who do acting and stuff like that are still, it's like a form of an apprenticeship. You know what I mean? In the background, you're just like, yeah, it's not my fault that I was strengthening this fucking muscle.
Yeah.
You know, it's like while you were, you know, putting pipes in the ground.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And that's been, really helpful. The feeling comfortable in that discomfort of being on stage and the rolling the dice on a new bit where you're like, I don't know what's going to happen. This could get a laugh. This could get a murmur. It could get crickets.
Yeah, it could get racially abused.
Exactly. Yeah. Which, you know, has happened to me before. Yeah.
Probably should not point at him and just say that. He was telling me off camera.
So to talk about it on camera so you don't sound like a fuckwit.
Thank you.
So I'm Maltese Australian.
Yep.
I have a very Irish name from my dad's side of the family. My dad's never been on the scene for me, and mum, you know, she said to me once, you know, she had to really make a clear decision of, do I have a Maltese name and deal potentially with racism, or do I have like a Anglo-Western Celtic Irish name and not deal with racism? And so she went down that path. Hasn't actually worked out because people are confused. Like airports, I get checked all the fucking time. Traveling, it's just it's just random bullshit. But I was doing a gig. It was a cabaret show in the Melbourne CBD, and the cabaret audience is normally very open-minded, very left-leaning, liberal sort of audience.
Yep.
And I did my set. I did well. I did no crowd work or crowd interaction. I just got on, did material, got off stage. MC comes on and back announces, big round of applause for Jeremy Dooley. And this woman just fires up. She's like, that can't be his name. That's a stage name. Look, he can't be a Dooley. That's an Irish name. Look at his skin. Look at his skin. He's got dirty mud-coloured skin. He's got mud skin. Look at him. Look at him. Where is he? Where is he? That's a stage name. And just kept going on and on and on and on for like a minute and a half. I was already out the back. And I'm like, what do I do? Like, the MC didn't know how to handle it. Yeah. Because this is normally...
The good thing is you've been training in martial arts for so long. You should have been like, sneak attack, time to sleep, racist, you know?
So this woman, at halftime, the break, I was leaving to go to another show. And she cuts me off at the top of the stairs. And she kept going on with it. And she's like... Because it gets better. And it almost too good to be true, better. It's almost so wild that... I can't bring it to the stage because it sounds unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah.
So she cuts me off at the top of the stairs, keeps going with it. She's like, what are you? What are you? Like, the what are you? Just on repeat.
Yeah.
Like, how do I explain? Like, I'm Maltese, bitch. Like, chill the fuck out. And she's like, I'm 5th generation Irish Catholic from Belfast. Because I said to her, oh, you don't have an accent. Did you come here as a kid? Trying to, like, diffuse it. Because she was going on about, being from Belfast. And she's like, no, I'm 5th generation Irish Catholic from Belfast. I'm like, 5th generation? I'm like, I'm doing the maths in my mind. Like, that's like First Fleet sort of shit.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're Australian, bitch. Like,
Yeah,
like, and then she's like, I just got really fired up because my surname is Dooley and you look nothing like one of my family members. I'm like, are you joking? This was all because I had the same surname as
I thought
her.
it was. That's where I thought this was going.
Yeah, and I was like, it's too ridiculous almost to take to the stage to retell that whole story.
Yeah.
But just the venom from this chick, and that's like not an isolated incident because it's confusing. So like, I don't get booked on any like ethnic multicultural shows because of my name, but then I don't get picked on like, like you kind of this like when you're like a half caste, you're kind of not anything to anyone, which is really interesting. But I guess the benefit of that is that I don't rely on that. I rely on having to like work on my craft all the time. And like, there's the ratio of dudes to female and non-binary comedians in Melbourne in particular. Like, I don't know what it's like in other scenes, but is like heavily skewed towards there's more dudes.
Yeah.
And so sometimes...
That's everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so that means like, if you've got a lineup of 8 people and they have to have a certain amount of, like gender balance and makeup, it's like, well, I'm more likely to miss out. So I have to then be funny enough so that I'm never out of the equation.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's just the main thing, isn't it?
Yeah, because you get a lot of comedians, especially at like open mic level, who are like, oh, fucking, like I can't get on that stage. And, they're just putting her on as a token. Like, you get all that sort of shit. And then you get people who are like, I should be on because I tick all of these boxes.
Yeah.
None of the boxes say funny.
Yeah, yeah.
But
that's
it's
also
like,
me.
So my mentality is just like, how can I be funnier so that it's undeniable?
Yeah, so you can literally, it's like, oh no, I'm here on merit. That is the main thing.
Yeah.
Which is the issue sometimes. It's just like, not just comedy.
Yeah.
It could be any job in the world, anything in the world. You're like, it should be on merit. And you're like, it's not.
Yeah, and I totally get that, diversity is important. And I think like having like different types of people, different types of, from all walks of life is important so that audiences can see themselves on stage and maybe open. Yeah, absolutely. But I'm more talking about like when it's other male comedians, I need to like outwork, out-hustle, outplay, outwit Survivor.
You should just violently, like if they can't do comedy if they're broken.
Yeah, exactly. If their vocal cords don't work.
Yeah. Just trying to think of anything else. So comedy now is a full focus for fucking it's full in.
Yeah, I've been really lucky since starting in 2021. Like I've been able to travel with it. I've been able to perform at some really big rooms, and that's the whole thing. So it's I did last year in 2022. I did a comedy festival show. Split show with Lisa Gattenby. And I remember she actually asked me if I wanted to be on it in 2021. And I'd only been doing comedy for maybe 4 months at that point. Okay. And she's quite experienced comparatively. And so I was shocked. I thought, she's asked the wrong person. This was a message that was meant to be in someone else's DMs.
Yeah.
And it was me, her, and another comedian, and the other comedian had to drop out. And so this was all before the registrations for Comedy Festival. And so I just assumed it wasn't going to happen. And she's like, hey, no, we're still doing it. And at that point, I barely had 5 minutes, let alone 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But it was such a great experience and, got really good feedback, and it's kind of just been onwards and upwards.
Sweet.
So, performed, headlined in Europe earlier this year. Got to go to Malta and headline there, which was phenomenal, a huge like bucket list item, and then to be able to have family in the audience who the only other way they'd seen me is online.
Yeah.
So to be able to perform to them like in the motherland was very, very cool.
You speaking Maltese?
So I was getting ready to, and where my family's from Gozo, so we speak Gozitan, which is just like a dialect.
Okay.
Of Malta, and I rocked up there, and there was probably 80 people in the room by the time like I was ready to do my set.
Yep.
And of that 80 people, there was 9 people who were actually like Maltese, and 5 of which were like my cousins and their friends, because it's Europe and everyone's from everywhere, and that was something that I really had to learn. So you had people from Germany, the UK, you had South Americans, you had a couple of Australians in the room, Americans, like you had everyone in there. So I just did it in English, but threw in a few sort of very Maltese specific references for the locals and for my family.
Yeah,
it was great though. It was very cool.
The gig went well?
The gig went really, really well. They were like, when are you coming back? We'll do a full hour, do your own show.
You just be...
I'd be the only, like, there's not a lot of comedy happening there.
There's not?
There's only, like, there's not a lot of professional comedy that happens there.
That's the market, mate.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
So, next time I go back there, they have, so in the 80s, they did a Popeye movie starring Robin Williams, and that was filmed in Malta. It's old, like it's old and kind of a bit dark, I think, from memory. But they've got a ship there, and they're like, next time you come back, we'll do 150. It's 150 seater like function space now. The ship, and it's like we're going to do it there, and you'll do your hour there.
Yeah.
So
sick.
probably 2025 or 6, I'll go back there and do that.
Well, if you need an opener,
yeah,
I'll come to Malta.
It's good, man. It's a fun time.
Malta really is, to be honest. But so is Malta an island off Europe or something?
Yeah, we're smack bang in the middle of the Mediterranean. So I think it's about like 64 or 5 kilometers south of Sicily.
Okay.
And like north of Africa, and so it's a very historical. Like the whole capital is a World Heritage site.
Cool.
It's like a fort.
Yeah. Sick. Population, do you know?
Under 1 million. It's tiny.
It's tiny.
Like, it's very small.
Jeez.
It's a very small island, so everyone's in each other's shit.
Just going back quickly, we're going to wrap the pod up. Was there a moment that you were like, I could just karate chop this racist Dooley lady? You know what I mean? Like,
I was so confused, to be honest. I was so confused at like where this like venom was coming from, because she was fired up. It was like I'd insulted her like family.
Yeah. Imagine if you did.
I know, yeah. But I don't really get angry. It's like the only time anything really goes to that point in my head is if I feel physically threatened.
Yeah, and when you're obviously a killing machine.
And I reckon I've thrown one punch outside of competition or training in the last 20 years.
Was that a mouthy kid at?
It was a self-defense thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just it wasn't some kid going like, "Go on, Captain Starlight, huh?"
No, this guy came up to me. He'd been thrown out of a party, and he came up to me and was going me for some reason. And I was like, I don't know who the fuck you are, mate.
Yeah.
And he grabbed me by the collar. I'm like, oh. And in a street fight, 95% of the time they're going to go your head first. So I just like covered and he threw 12 punches because I was counting. Every one of them missed, and then I threw one punch, and then the fight was done.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Excellent. We won't go into details about you going to prison, but no, I think that's it, man. Thank you so much for coming on, chatting about the Starlight stuff. It's very it's not many people get to do a job where they are making a difference. You can pretend you are, but realistically, like helping children of all, like it's pretty amazing. So if that's, you've got a lot of good karma is what I'm trying to say. So next time some racist lady is being a cunt, you're allowed to hit her.
Yeah.
I think. You're like, I did 4 years of good. That equates to one punch.
Hey, I worked at a lot of charities over the years, so we can probably add more years to that.
Punch a child. I don't know, just one. What's your plugs? We got Instagram, all that.
Yeah. At comedy. No, that's the other one, which I'll get to that. Jeremy Dooley Official on all of the things. Especially my website. Sign up for the mailing list, and I'll hit you up for shows. I'm not send you a newsletter every week. But yeah, Jeremy Dooley Official, and then myself and another comedian, Jared Goundry. We do comedycollective.co, so .co, and we're producing shows, and we're running sort of comedy, leadership, team building, empathy workshops, communication workshops in businesses. So if that's a thing as well, then hit us up.
Yeah, so if you're a business and you want to add a bit of pizzazz, a bit of jazz,
bit of laughter,
to your seminars and whatnot.
Yeah, so it's if you're a business and it's you have to communicate with people, then that's what we do as comedians. It's communication. So we teach people how to write jokes and how to bring laughter into things, but also how do you talk with more impact to connect and get to the point quicker.
Yeah, because word economy and all that type of stuff.
That's the thing.
It's obviously huge in stand-up. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. You will see Jeremy on this podcast many more times. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
We're all done. Thank you.